Welcome back. This is the second half of our newspaper review. We're looking at the big stories, of course, of the day across the dailies, but also talking about matters economy. What's the state of economy? What's the cost of living even as we move forward? Of course, this coming off the backdrop of, pain at the pump as fuel prices went up this particular week. Where do you go from there, even for those who do know that that particular cost permeates every other sector of the economy and business as well? That's a discussion we're having in studio. Reginald Kadzutu, Kamunyo Kibe. We also have Joseph Karanja going through this particular discussion as well. A couple of tweets coming in. Let me look at those very quickly before I get back to you, gentlemen. Let me get that in right now. At the RAM, as we talk about the economy, we need to talk about jobs. Where do we get these jobs from? That's always a key issue every single time we have this particular discussion. Nyar Mumbo saying, I don't agree with you guys right now. We need to be talking about the hope that we can find. That's the only way Kenyans can get out of bed and I'd assume this is move forward and work. Gibson Weldon saying, we need to go out there and hustle. That's the only way. He said, Rekali, haita tusaidia. Hashtag K24 this morning. Okay, keep them coming in. You can get me at I am Jeff Morty as well, or K24 TV. Let me start off with Joseph on this one. This particular Sunday, of course, with the announcement in terms of the increase in fuel prices. Very interesting scenario as that played out, because we also learned that there was a subsidy that those using diesel are supposed to get, but that didn't happen as well because there was a legal hitch. How do you explain that? Because surely some people are saying if they're collecting billions of shillings, the first thing they should do is keep, make sure that the regulatory framework, the legislative process is in place so that Kenyans can actually be cushioned from this cost in expenditure in terms of rising fuel prices. What's going on in there?
Okay, if we need to understand how the industry works, because number one, the products belongs to private companies. It is those companies which import the products at their costs and of course to do their business. But as they continue doing their business, they do it on a platform which has been set by the government, such that there are those government policies on how to go about the whole business through the industry. But when you look at, because we depend, the fuel being in the country here depends on those two pillars. Now, because the importer has to import the product, and then, but he has to work within the framework which has been laid by the government. But when one of them becomes sharper than the other or sly than the other, the consumer down there, the mwananchi, is the one who suffers. Like now, when this one was to happen, we had seen it, as in the industry, as who are in that business, had seen it, because 3 weeks prior to the announcement, these products had disappeared from our eyes, from our reach as independents. The product was just being, dealt with by the importers. They import and decide that we are not going to sell to the independents, but we are going to just deal with our own stations, such that they're using the common user facilities like the pipeline, like the storage system, the market. Just favoring their own side. Now, when we saw that we are not accessing these products as independents now, we had to now start to try to scavenge, just go after their dealers so that we may get, and that is when we started sensing. You see, this thing had happened again last year when there was this lockdown. And it appears like when the independents don't access the products, immediately when that one causes the prices to go up again somehow. Mm-hmm. And we are not happy about it. We are trying to look for ways how to address it, of course, through the government, because it is the policies which are weak, allowing such, such maneuver, such, tricks to be employed in this industry.
Okay. So, Joseph, from where you stand, the increase that we're seeing in terms of petroleum at the pump isn't due to global prices?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, there are some factors which are there, but then these clever people just try to sneak in their, their manipulative ideas, so that it can be, it is covered by what is happening internationally. Okay,
let me bring it back to this side. Reggie, when you look at the front page of the Daily Nation, the IMF recommending job cuts and tax increase as far as this is concerned. We're coming off a back where no one around the world could have predicted what COVID would bring and the effects of that. As an economy, as of last year, I think around November, already 1.5 million jobs shed from the economy, and that's what was reported. Plenty others, of course, of that particular report. At this point, and that was a question that we took even before we went into the break, where does the government go to do this? Now it's civil service that we're expected to see these layoffs taking place. So how do you see this playing out? Because they've already taken the money from IMF, so they have to follow through with the conditions as well.
They've actually not yet taken. They've signed an agreement, and the money will be phased out in
38 months.
38 months, which is pretty much 3 years. Then they can always renegade at some point. I think the president gave a hint of the pressure they're in. Remember, there's a time he gave a speech saying that you will not bully us, don't interfere in our whatever. But if you borrow and you are broke, and you are going to beg to them, they will definitely interfere. Unfortunately, IMF and World Bank economics has never helped any country develop, unfortunately to say. It has never been pro-development of African strategies because the strategies that they bring are not congruent with the reality that is on the ground. I keep on saying that we have close to 14, 15, it's 19 million, so 17 million of people in the informal sector. That's where they're employed, and only 2 million in the formal sector. So if you do policies that only affect 2 million people, you will not see an impact. 70% of the people in the country live in rural areas and work in rural areas. So if your policies are not designed to fight rural unemployment, then even if you cut civil servants' jobs, as what IMF is saying, cut the wage bill. If you notice, the wage bill is still not even above 30% of the budget. Of the country, so to speak. What is actually the largest part of our budget is actually debt service now. So our problem is actually debt. Because if you cut those jobs in the civil service, where are those people going to get employment from? The private sector is not creating jobs. So you will create an unemployment problem. And the ripple effects of that is once you cut jobs, you have people that are now unemployed. That is a reduction of demand or aggregate demand in the economy. There will be a reduction in demand for key-based products. There will be a reduction of demand for many other products. What happens when key-based products or services get reduced demand? He starts cutting off more employees on his side and shrinking his operations, and you now get into a vicious cycle of unemployment. So I don't think that the hard stance of IMF, the things that they normally come with, raise taxes, cut whatever, is what the country actually needs right now. And that will not work. IMF should have come and said, we are wiping out half your debt. That would be the best thing that would have actually happened to Kenya. Say, for us to wipe out half your debt, these are the things now we want to see you put in place. We want to see you fight corruption more, to fight the leakages. We want to see you invest more in devolution and create jobs where people are, so that we stop fighting symptoms and trying to sort out symptoms. That will be a better way for IMF to approach this. But to load the debt upon debt for the country, and then you tell them to raise taxes, like what Mr. Karanja has said, if you look at your fuel bill, 48% of it to 50% of it is government taxes. And remember, they only implemented half of what IMF originally wanted. We only put 8% of VAT. They wanted 16%. So expect that to increase. Fuel prices are projected to reach $100 per barrel this year. We're only at 50. So even this fuel cost you're complaining about is definitely going to go up. The question is, what did the country do when fuel prices were at 20 as a government policy? Why did we have storage to buy enough fuel when fuel was at 20 and 10. But now it's at 50. We have no benefits of which were accrued to us when fuel was lower. So if taxes are going to increase, that means disposable income is also going to reduce, and purchasing power is going to reduce. Then we get into a vicious cycle where the economy just grinds slowly to a halt, growing by 3%, 4% at most. So it's a sad state of affairs. I don't even know why anyone wants to be president come 2022, because you're just going to be inheriting big problems. And the person who comes in 2022 most probably going to be the most hated president in the country, because these job cuts will sit on that person. These tax increases will sit on this person. And what I would advocate for that person is to declare some of our debt as odious debt, and can't pay, won't pay, and move on with life.
Well, you've said that severally on this particular show, and I don't know how that would stand in terms of our access to even international credit at that point. What happens?
You can still get credit. Argentina has been defaulting for time immemorial. Even recently, they still defaulted. They still got. You see, when you declare debt odious, you are saying, yes, we borrowed. Yes, it was our responsibility to pay this, but we cannot account for this debt. As in, yes, the previous regime borrowed 7 trillion. We can account for 1 trillion for SGR. What happened to the other 6 trillion? Yeah? So it is money that was borrowed but not used for the intended purposes. As a creditor, it is your responsibility to make sure that your money is used for what it was intended for you to get it back. So if you lend and just give money, like what our DFIs do, because they have targets of lending money, if they just lend money, the money is stolen, it's not used for what? A new regime can actually come and can stand the legal test in international court and say, this is an odious debt, it was borrowed, it was stolen. We will not put the burden on these hustlers that are being spoken of to pay for a debt that we cannot actually account for.
Okay.
And then you have actually a clean book. Actually, your books become better. And as long as you can show the international community and even the local investors that, yes, you have defaulted on this debt because of genuine reasons, and the prospect of the economic growth going forward is actually brighter and better. There is institutional policies and structures that can stand a political party and stand a political person so that they are not short-termism. Money will start flowing, because people who lend money just want to get their money back and a good return, and your future strategy and prospects are what will actually make people be able to come back.
Let's talk about that money, because Kibe, sometime last year, the president had given a directive to banks, to give some reprieve in terms of loans, as far as that's concerned. Also tried to, spur some circulation of, cash within the economy as well. This was to protect the SMEs, so this was to protect your business and others like yours. First of all, was that affected? Did you feel it in your business as well? And at this particular point in time, do you feel like probably that's what we need to do again, just to make sure we protect the SMEs? Because very many of them are complaining that things are still pretty tough on the streets.
Well, the reprieve was affected, but if you remember, I think it was only for 3 months. And so you get a debt relief for 3 months. But yet, within that 3 months, you've not gotten any more business. At the end of that 3 months, you still have to repay. You go back to the old regime where you are paying the debt. So, yes, it was a good thing. You got a holiday for 3 months, but things were still very thick, even as you were beginning. So, it didn't quite help much. I mean, we welcomed it as the business community. But at the end of it, you'd have expected that during those 3 months you would have made so much money such that the repayments become easier as you get into the 4th and 5th month. But that wasn't the case, because people were not buying. People were working from home. There was just generally no money in the economy.
Right.
So it was a good thing, but it didn't quite have the effect.
Okay.
Yes.
And even as for you, when you wake up this morning and you look at the front page of the Daily Nation, and it's all about job cuts, tax increase, as an entrepreneur, what do you think about that in terms of your business? How do you prepare for that? When you see, okay, fine, this is a headline that we're having, this is what we're probably having down the road, what informs your decision from here moving forward? Other than naomba serikali, after that, where do we go to next? What do you think are the practical moves most SMEs might be thinking to make with what we are seeing happening right now?
Well, last year, as a business, we experienced quite a number of things. We actually had to cut some jobs, unfortunately. And even the people who remained, we had to slash their salaries. And up to, even up to now, we are still not back to 100% salaries. But then again, what we learned from last year is that you can actually be able to survive on less. At least for me, that's what I learned. Of course, I scaled down a number of things. And the hope would be that even my employees also scaled down. Because nowadays I don't hear the complaints about money so much. So the hope would be that if we can carry that for a few more months as the economy recovers and as business starts to pick up, because it is picking up, then things will look up. Things will look up very soon. And hopefully we can start hiring again.
Okay.
Because even the people we had to let go, it's not that we didn't need them. It's just that we couldn't pay them.
Right.
So the hope is that we'll recover soon, and beyond that, we can learn to reduce our spending.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Joseph, let me come to you as well on this, because like you spoke about the fact that, especially with what's happening in the petroleum industry, there seems to be a bit of sleight of hand with how people are playing with the prices and what they're doing. As an association, this is the point where some people would think you're supposed to lobby, try and get PS Kamau involved in this and different players. Has that been done? And if so, what has been the effect of that engagement in trying to come to a common ground in how to deal with petroleum?
Now, you see, from where we are independent, just the way the word goes. And this one, being independent, calls for you to just wake up and see what is happening, then plan what you're going to do. What we know is that here in Kenya, and most of us are just good people who are ready to do things and go places. We have the potential even to recover, like what my friend is saying there, that we can do with less and start again. We have seen, and we ought to learn from what we are known for, like the races. When somebody is running, is competing, because here we are competing with time and issues, when we see our people running and somehow somebody, gets weary and lacks the energy, and then we see people cheering them up, they kind of gather some new energy. And this is what is supposed to happen. You don't kill the morale of the people. Don't tell somebody get out of the race or what. You tell him carry on, be strong, you're going to make it. We can still get back to the race and we can run. As an association, we are encouraging our people not to be discouraged, not to give up, but we need to just come back again and sit down, encourage one another, look for ways how to maneuver. And as we approach the government and dealing with the current situation, because everything is affecting us wherever we are, we look for how to continue. But we are kind of dismayed by those guys who are at the helm there, because they are not supporting. You see, if I can talk to them, when you are in those offices, please try to support those who are out there. Even when I'm seeing here that there will be some high taxes and job cuts, these are the formal jobs, but out here there are so many other things which can be done. We don't have to, telling the youths again, you don't have to focus on how you can be employed out there. But whatever you are able to do from where you are, you just need to be encouraged. And let the government take up the challenge that they encourage those people who are trying to do the least that they are able to do. And ultimately, in time, these people will be strong and our economy will be up again.
Okay, Joseph, in terms of that particular engagement between KIPEDA, the association, and the government, has that taken place? And if so, how has that discussion gone? Have you tried to approach the ministry, the PS, and seen how they can actually also see the problems that you're facing as an association and the members within your association?
is something very funny happened just the other day. Unfortunately, I don't think this is the right time to disclose this, but I'll just mention it. Because when we again go back to the draft, which is going around for public participation, when we were reading through it, we were complaining that we were not involved, in compiling it. We were not involved. But when we were going through the Kenya Gazette, you find somewhere, just somebody, somebody did not see just a small line about Rwanda. You see, that somebody shall be required to come with what from the Rwanda police. Now, this is something somebody has copied from, another country, copy pasted into our Kenya Gazette, and then giving it to us that these are the regulations which are going to bind you, and then you want us to discuss. Really? You did not involve us. You just borrowed it from a country the way it is. Then you just give us, and you want us to discuss it. I think they have not engaged with us.
Okay.
And whenever we try to approach them, you will just find people. We will organize. We will call you. We will tell you. People don't want to think. People don't want to confront real issues as they are. It's very unfortunate.
Reginald, let me get back to you. We have 4 minutes even as we wind this particular conversation, so we'll be taking our parting shots in a bit. But quickly, we're looking at the debt choices that sunk Kenyans into deep hole. This, of course, talking about even as IMF approves that 261 billion Kenya shilling loan. And some issues that have been raised was the fact that most of the times, probably all the time, the currency in which we do our borrowing is in the dollar. From international standard practice, is it possible to negotiate and ask for these loans in your currency, or is it too much to ask? Because it seems like usually that's also a problem in how we get ourselves into this particular hole.
It is possible to actually issue an international bond in Kenya shillings. And you'll find that's what Japan does. Most of its debt is in the yuan. For Britain, most of its debt is in the pound. For the US, yes, it's definitely in the dollar. But if you look at our debt problem, even the international debt is actually not even our problem as Kenya. If you look at the debt service that has to be paid this year, around 500 to 600 billion, close to 80% of that is actually domestic debt. That has to be paid. So our debt problem actually is not international debt.
It's not a currency issue.
It's not a currency issue. Why do I say that? The foreign debt is at 6-7%, which is high in terms of standard. Just shows the risk of lending to Kenya, and that's why we are graded one grade just above junk in terms of international bonds. Because in the US, Britain and all these developed countries borrow at 0.1%, 0.00, whatever, 2%. We are borrowing at 7%. So just shows you how risky they consider you. But compare the 6%, 7% on 50% of our debt vis-a-vis the average rate on our domestic debt, which is close to 12-13%. So we borrow more expensive locally, which doesn't make sense, ideally. So our main problem actually is just an over appetite of capital-intensive projects instead of looking again at the demographics that we have, that we are labor-intensive. So when we run away from capital-intensive projects and start doing more labor-intensive projects, so that we increase the coverage of the people that are inside the employment bracket and the formal employment bracket, you realize KRA's revenue collection will also go up, which reduces the need for the government to borrow more going forward. So external debt is actually not our problem. Domestic debt, capital-intensive projects with very low to negative return on investment is what is ailing the Kenyan government.
Kibi, let me come to you. We have 2 minutes as we bring this to a close. What's your parting shot this morning as a business person, as a Kenyan, as we wrap this up on the state of the economy? What's your parting shot today?
I think one of the things, just in connection to what Reginald was talking about, one of the things that government can do to just help the economy get off its knees is to also encourage local spending. Right now we are engaged in some heavy infrastructural projects. Yet just last year, I think Kenya, Portland Cement went down. if you remember. That doesn't make sense to me. I was just telling my friend the other day. It's a cement factory. There's a lot of cement being used. And they're not even here to reap those benefits. What I understand is that when you contract the Chinese, they come with all their equipment. So I think encourage local spending because that money is what circulates and helps improve the lives of people within the economy. Okay. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay, fantastic stuff. Joseph Karanja, very quickly, 30 seconds. What's your parting shot as we bring this show to a close?
I just want to encourage Kenyans not to give up. Just use whatever God has given us as as natural gifts. I was listening to. Unfortunately, we lost some of very good elders there, and I was just imagining what if one person could do such things that like what they did, and then you leave a number of people, if they can reproduce themselves, if they had reproduced themselves to these people, and such that if one did this, how much can the other 5, 10 do if they inherited the same? Such that we are able to do things. Let's not look at what those who came before us did, but let us now, fly higher than what they did. We are able, and the potential is there, and God has gifted us all what we need to, to build our country again and grow and be stable again.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for that. Joseph Karanja, he is the chair of the Kenya Independent Petroleum Dealers Association. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Kamunyo Kibe, he is CEO and founder, 6 Ideas Branding. Thank you so much for your time this morning. And Reginald Kazutu, the man who comes to crunch the numbers on the show, our economist. Thank you so much for your time this morning as well. Thanks for making time. We're going to take a short break at this particular point in time. After the break, we get interactive, so don't go too far. Back with that.